And welcome back to Sovereign Sanity, a source of sovereign clarity and expansion. This is video number 4. Now I'm really excited about today's video. So far we've reviewed sovereignty related to the individual and the government, the significance of rights and freedoms, the establishment of authority, and the requirement for individual consent. For this video, we'll be taking a look at how the sovereign voice exists today. I'll be putting forward a one-page summary of jurisdictions or rule books that are guidelines for the current authorities established to help protect our historic rights and freedoms. But I'll also be taking a look at the establishment of authority from the period that I've established as before books. And through doing so, it should help us to start to understand what I'm referring to when I use the phrase sovereign voice, and how this can be used to help you as a lawful shield, in particular against unjust claims. My guess is, by the time we get to the end of this particular video, some viewers might be saying, "Oh, the question really is, who are you?" And speaking of key questions, I'll be answering these as part of today's video. First of all, how does the sovereign voice maintain historic authority? And in order to answer this question, I'll be introducing a new law that some viewers may not be familiar with. Next, what is the key difference between a sovereign voice and your person's voice? Next, when does the sovereign individual get recognized authority? And finally, why talk about history and integrity in the last 3 videos? And is there a significance to colors? Well, these first 3 questions will be answered as part of the visual moving forward. And regarding speaking about history and integrity, well, quite simply, if I hadn't have taken some time to put forward some perspective in the last couple of videos, this video just wouldn't make as much sense. And colors. For those of you that have been following along from the beginning of this video series, you might have recognized that red represents the significance of rights and freedoms. Yellow represents following the path of the establishment of authority, and blue represents the recognition and defendability required in order for authority to be active or valid. So here we go. Sticking with the portrayal that has been put forward from the beginning of this video series related to a timeline that I've referred to as the period before books and after books, let's take a look at the jurisdictions or rule books or guidelines related to the establishment of this authority leading to what I'm going to refer to as superior sovereign authority. So we started noting the first individuals on planet Earth, and the authority at that time being nature itself, because survival was what was relevant to all individuals. I also made quick note of this period before humanity and the great mystery, which I'll touch on a little bit more as part of this video. But sticking with this timeline that we've established already, you've got the first individual tribes coming together, forming their own recognized and defendable beliefs. Over time, those tribes would start to cross paths and become combined tribal beliefs, or tribal laws, or common senses. Now, what were these senses related to? Well, experiencing both desirable and undesirable interactions from crossing paths, and through those senses, learning that there's something to pay attention here to regarding what is desirable, and we need to protect what's desirable, and that being the formation of rights and freedoms. Now it appears as individuals started to pay attention to senses or sensations that humanity would then start to sensationalize an acknowledgement to a superior authority, known today by many viewers faithfully as God or gods. So once again, in order to hold individuals accountable to this newly founded rights and freedoms shield, you would have to find them. So at this point, some would be forming family names, and some still wouldn't maybe have a recognized name to identify with. So that would become the challenge moving forward, is how then to hold individuals accountable as humanity would grow. So it's not then just a consideration of criminal offenses, but also civil offenses, because as civilization grows, there's more matters of concern that could lead to safety. So governments then start to take on a more elaborate authority to maintain and protect this rights and freedoms shield. So the strategy at that point would be to come up with a record of birth or a birth certificate that would help to protect the rights and freedoms shield. So another jurisdiction that you may be familiar with, which is not very common, this is the rule of water. Now most of us won't find us in this position, so admiralty law or maritime law, and this would be lawful or legal jurisdiction, because you really could run into an individual without a name. It's funny, when folks with ideas of sovereignty think about individuals with thoughts of sovereignty, they would say in order for an individual with thoughts of sovereignty to actually live as a sovereign, they would have to go to an uninhabited island or live on the uncharted ocean somewhere, uncharted waters. So realistically, you could run into a human being with no name. Now it appears safe to say that that type of situation would just not be realistic to most individuals. However, it does seem to appeal to me for one reason or another.
Meet my friend Timber. Natural nature navigational authority for survival.
But seriously, I do know a human who was born sovereign and remained in that capacity until about the age of 5 or 6, when one of the parents would register that individual with the government so that that individual could attain public school as part of the collective. Now, should something have happened within that first 5 to 6 years that was considered to be a matter of rights and freedoms or a crime, it technically wouldn't have been possible for that individual to be represented and defended under the most current form of authority, because there was no registered birth or registered birth name. So the idea of having a sovereign state of being or a sovereign voice is a very real consideration, and it has to do with following the establishment of authority throughout history. So that gets us to the question, what's the difference of using your sovereign being or your person, your legal name, your sovereign voice or your person's voice? And the answer to that question, I would say it boils down to a stipulation. If you, for one, would prefer to keep it simple, you might just say, why not use the name that I was given, as it makes most sense to you as the most current form of authority? Now on the flip side of that coin, some might relate to the acknowledgement of a more historic form of authority that still exists today. So what does it boil down to? Integrity. Whether you're using the capacity of your legal person's voice or the capacity of your sovereign being or your sovereign voice, it boils down to integrity. What's the integrity of the accuser? What's the integrity of the accused? And most importantly, as part of the collective, what's the integrity of the established authority with the responsibility to protect the rights and freedoms shield? All of those factors boil down to integrity. But as far as your sovereign voice versus your legal person's voice, why is it even a question? Well, because it's a real stipulation. What was your name at the time of birth, before you were registered? You were born sovereign. And that's what I'm referring to when I use the phrase sovereign voice. It represents a historic form of authority. So then, your birth certificate is created after birth. And that's an important stipulation to keep in mind as we continue on with this video series related to how you can use your sovereign voice to claim your historic authority related to what's more currently known as the Rights and Freedoms Shield. And this type of language, the capacity of your person or the capacity of your sovereign, might help you to understand the idea of being an administrator representing your person. It's something similar to paying your phone bill or a utility bill. It's your responsibility to administrate that utility, that service, so that it would continue on with integrity. Similarly, your person is not you. It's just something that is attached to you that you're responsible to administrate for, should you choose to use it at all. Now, getting back to the water, this gets a little complicated depending on the circumstances. So you can either be your person to keep it simple, you can administrate for your person, which is a little bit more complicated, but worthy of acknowledging your historic freedom and historic authority. It shows that you're aware of it, and that has power and authority in itself. And of course, that's referred to as using your sovereign voice. Now, I am going to get more in detail as this video series moves forward, specifically related to this, and the purpose of creating this video series is to help individuals help themselves. Now, let's get back to the period before books. As it appears, we have this one black hole still left to fill, the great mystery. So we left off acknowledging that the superior authority at the time of the first humans on planet Earth would have been that of nature and the elements. And we now know today that elements, nature, something, and someone, so elements, nature, things, and people, are all comprised of molecules and atoms. Now this is the point. I need to ask you to remain open, calm, and patient, and reserve judgments, because for this video series, I'm not going to dive too deep down this rabbit hole. However, it appears important that we continue to expand on this, related to following a path to superior sovereign authority. Therefore, introducing universal law and the law of vibration. Now, as we take a closer look at universal law, it's important to bring to the surface this metaphor. If one atom or molecule is equal to one individual human, and then the expansion of atoms or molecules is equal to the expansion of humanity, the question then becomes, what authority governs the process of expansion? So keeping that in mind, and before I move forward, for some viewers, this might not fit as part of your current belief system. And if that's the case, because I don't plan on diving too deep into this as part of this video series, you may have to sort of look at this as a little bit of a storybook time for big kids. Now, let's take an even closer look at universal law and the period before humanity and the great mystery. So here you have the first single atom or molecule. Let's call it intrinsic oneness. Now, the appearance of something out of nothing is most certainly a great mystery. Furthermore, it appears safe to say that the appearance of someone could be an even more miraculous mystery. Hence, the introduction of the individual for the purpose of this visualization. So what are the laws of the universe? Well, among the most common are vibration, attraction, balance, polarity, gestation, and allowance. So sticking with the purpose of this visualization, we're looking at the idea of one becoming something more. So one becomes more, and then what is it that influences the attraction of something more? Well, it appears as though there must be energy or frequency or some sort of a vibration. And then what influences the stability of the attraction? So that's balance. And then polarity is there basically so you know the difference. Basically, what's the difference between a good day and a not so good day if nothing ever goes wrong? And then gestation. How long is this going to take? And my favorite universal law related to the purpose of this video would be the law of allowance. Moving forward, for some viewers, you'll have to try your best to concentrate and pay close attention so you'll be able to relate to this particular visualization. Now, if something individual expands to something more, although it can interact as part of a collective, it retains its individual authority as part of the process, similar to what's known as today as the establishment of rights and freedoms and the requirement for individual consent. Now, some may be of the impression that rights and freedoms is not true to them. In those cases, it would appear the being is not quite aware of their intrinsic, unique, individual authority. And as one becomes more aware of it, it becomes easier to expand individual integrity. As each individual is similar to an acrobat walking the tightrope of the here-now moments called life, while sharing that rope with a collective of other individual beings or acrobats, all attempting to find a unified sense of balance. You see, we are the collective, and we can influence government integrity, in particular with a deeper awareness and sense of commitment toward individual integrity. So what is it that protects, guides, and governs universal law? The unexplainable, undefinable, superior sovereign authority. Now, if sovereign had a name that would describe its recognized defendability phenomena related to its authority, I would imagine it would be called karma. So you see, the question really is, who are you? So as the bell symbolizes what I would describe as enough information for one video, let me leave you with this final visualization that might help you with the discovery process related to superior sovereign authority and your unique individual sovereign voice. There are two rooms. One is the light, the other is darkness. Now, all things considered equal for both rooms, put a door between them. Open the door, what happens? Now, for some viewers, in this moment, or within the few moments to follow, I would like to welcome you to intrinsic polarity enlightenment. Now, for the rest of this particular video series, I look forward to remaining focused on helping viewers to see how you can use your historic sovereign authority and your sovereign voice to protect yourself as part of real-life current situations. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in video number 5.